morning, campers. And before I leave, I just wanted to cover a couple things quick. Yes, it did rain last night. I did not shoot footage when I got to the shelter, the Mount Collins shelter, because there were already like 4 people in the shelter and like 4 or 5 tents set up. I couldn't believe how many people were here. The night before, there were 3 of us at the campsite, so I have no idea. But anyway, it rained last night. Let me show you something. So here's where I tented. I spent a lot of time walking around these woods, you know, looking at, and there's a shelter. That's the shelter right there. That's the roof. You can see that white thing. Spent a lot of time walking around these woods, looking for spots. There were several people who were already taking good spots. I found this spot. As you can see, it's dry now because my tent was there. It wasn't the best spot. It was sloped, and I was sliding up against the wall of the tent all night, but as you can see, very dry. Good drainage. Let me show you by comparison a tent site with other people were at. One guy was right there. That's where his tent was. The other guy was over there. That's where his tent was. So you can see that site selection is vitally important. So even though this wasn't the most level, flat spot, I knew it was going to have good drainage, and I was right. So I'm all suited up for rain. It's not raining, but it's dripping off trees a little bit. It's also cold. I got my rain kilt on, my rain jacket, and today's 13 miles. Once I get to the trail, it's 9 o'clock right now. Very late start for me, but it was raining this morning. I didn't want to get out in the rain. I got to go half a mile to the trail, then 13 miles to the next to the shelter I'm staying at. So it's a big day, and I got to climb up Klingman's Dome, the highest point on the AT. So some steep climbing. I don't think I'm going to have any views up at Klingman's Dome. There's an observation platform or something up there, but it's all going to be cloudy. So unfortunately, I'm not going to have views today. It's too bad. Klingman's Dome, it's one of the most iconic spots on the AT, but it's just not going to happen today, unfortunately. So with that said, I'm off and running. Oh, the last thing I'll mention is we're getting a cold snap. Arctic air is pushing down from Canada. Temperatures are going to drop into the low 20s. It could go a good 10, 12 degrees below freezing tonight, and it's not going to get above freezing tomorrow. So I'm going to have a good 24 to 36 hours of sub-freezing temperatures. It's going to be pretty brutal. I'm not looking forward to it. I got to get through it. I got to get to Fontana Dam Wednesday afternoon, get the shuttle to the hostel, or the B&B I should say, then I can get showered and do my laundry and dry out my gear. But the next 24 to 30, well, really the next, not 24, 48 to 60 hours are going to be very trying for me. So, oh well, it is what it is. I don't believe it. I'm less than a mile from Klingman's Dome, and the sun just peeked out. It just ducked behind a cloud again, but I actually saw sunlight on the trees and shadows. So maybe, just maybe, there it is again. Look ahead of me. Sunlight. Look at that. So maybe I'll get lucky. Maybe I'll be able to climb the dome and see a view. I don't know. I should be there within 45 minutes.
Yeah, there's it. That's it.
Well, sorry that Klingman's Dome was a bust. I knew it would be. I figured it would be. But that's the highest point on the AT, so everything else is downhill from here. Not literally, obviously there's ups and downs, but everything else is at a lower elevation from here. So most of the rest of today is downhill. I got a few small ups, but they shouldn't be too bad. Cold, windy, wet, cloudy, and yet there are dozens and dozens and dozens of people going up there. I'm like, these people are numbskulls, obviously. I mean, who wakes up in the morning and says, gee, it's a Monday, it's cold, it's wet, it's cloudy, it's windy. Let's go up Klingman's Dome, see what there is to see. A bunch of nothing, dumbass. Jeez, what a bunch of tools. What were you expecting? Oh my God. Anyway, I guess they're expecting a miracle to clear the air. I don't know. In any event, some other day, I guess, but I'm sure the views, you know, there's nothing like up in New Hampshire and Maine. But, all right, I just got to get to the shelter. I'm going to stop at the next shelter in 2.5 miles, take a break. That'll be about the halfway point. And then I'm going to boogie, boogie, boogie all the way to my intended destination. I'm just leaving the Double Spring shelter where I had lunch. As you can see, the sun's come out. It's warmed up a bit. I took off my rain kilt. Just had my shorts on, took off my gloves too. Still have my beanie on my head. 7.4 miles to Derrick Knob shelter. So it's mostly downhill. There's a few small ups. I'm gonna boogie best I can. Like to get there by 4:30 if I can. 5 o'clock being my drop dead deadline. I'm not gonna stop for water again. I've heard from people who were just there that there's good water at the shelter. If I can make it there in 3 to 3.5 hours, I've got enough water to make it. That'll save me some time. However, the problem is tomorrow and Wednesday, water is few and far between. The problem with that is, number one, I'll have to carry water at certain points. You know, when I find the last good water source, I'll have to carry water to camp, have enough water for the camp that night and the next day to get me to the next water source, which might be quite a ways. So I may need to carry quite a bit of water. And the other problem is the temperature is going to be so cold, I'm worried about my water bottles freezing. You know, I've got my bottles in the outside pockets of my backpack, and if they're exposed to the air, the water could freeze in my water bottles. That's a real concern. I'm also going to have to keep my water filter like next to my body inside my jacket pocket if it gets that cold out. So all things to consider. It's going to be tough. Tomorrow is Tuesday and Wednesday. Those are going to be tough days, both because of the cold and the water situation, the scarcity of water. So it's going to be dicey. I'm going to have to really conserve my water. I'm going to have to just drink enough water to stay from getting dehydrated and not just, you know, super hydrate myself like I normally do. If I find a water source, I will camel up there, but I can't be slugging down water all day along the trail. I just have to sip at it, keep myself from dehydrating, but not really drink as much as I usually do, just so I can make it. So that's the situation. I'm hoping the terrain isn't too bad. It's, like I said, mostly downhill, and I'm just gonna put my head down and hike, because I want to get there and set up my tent, let it dry out as much as possible before I get in it, because it's going to drop down, 10 degrees below freezing in the low 20s tonight. It could even dip below 20. So I don't want to be inside a damp tent when it's that cold. Yep, that's the typical shelter here in the Smokies. This is Seiler's Bald Shelter. I'm just leaving it. There's some nice flat tent spots around here, though. Got to give them that. Several. You could get 1, 2, 3, you get 5, 6, maybe half a dozen tents over here. Nice flat sites. So it's 2 o'clock. I've got 5.7 miles to go to Derrick Knob shelter. I took off my rain jacket, which I was using as a windbreaker. At this point, the sun's out. It's warmed up a bit. There's still a cold wind. So if I get a chill, I'm going to have to throw it back on. But right now, I got to make time, so I don't want to overheat. I want to try to get there by 4:30. That's pretty aggressive. I'd have to hike at about a 2.3 mile an hour pace. Mostly downhill. There's a couple of small but steep uphill pushes. So I'm going to stop filming. I'm going to get hiking. Wish me luck getting there by 4:30. I decided to stop. I just passed about 8 people headed the same direction I'm going. I flew by them. They had to jump off the trail. I think they're going to Derrick Knob. I can't imagine they're going any further, judging by the looks of them, but that's not why I stopped here. I stopped here also not to show you the view, even though it's a beautiful foliage view. I stopped here because I want you to see something. Look down at my feet. Ready? Did you see that? You didn't see it. with that step, I just crossed the 2,000 mile mark. Yes! I am officially a 2,000 miler. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, you're too kind. Oh, 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 you're embarrassing me. Oh, stop. Stop. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. A very important moment in every AT thru hiker's journey, the 2,000 mile mark. The ATC has a designation called the 2,000 miler. So now I officially qualify as a 2,000 miler. I still have 3.1 miles to the shelter, but wow, I have less than 200 miles left. I don't see a sign. There's no, I keep waiting for there to be a sign that says 2,000 or 200 miles left. But I didn't see any. So, but I wanted to share that moment with you. It's pretty exciting, I have to say. 2,000 miles. It only took me 6.5 months to get here. Of blood, sweat, tears, cold, wet, heat, humidity, sweat, dirt, smell, cuts, scrapes, bruises, insect bites, respiratory infections, you name it. Oops. Planters, warts, plantar fasciitis, sore muscles. I mean, it's been pretty rough, but I made it 2,000 miles. Less than 200 to go. Yeehaw! Okay. Siler's Bald Shelter 2.9, that's where I came from. Exactly 1 hour ago I left there. 2 o'clock on the dot, it's 3 o'clock on the dot now. I made it 2.9 miles in 1 hour. That's phenomenal, especially some of these uphills. Whew. Derrick Knob Shelter, I think that said 7. It's missing some of the wood. It looks like a 7. So that's 2/10 shorter, which means I could do that. Now I could be there by 4 if the terrain is agreeable to me. But I think 4:15 is definitely doable. So I just came to the top of this thing. I'm taking a quick breather before I push on. I'm gonna have a quick snack, and then I'm gonna make the final push to Derrick Knob Shelter. Well, it is 5 minutes to 4. Derrick Knob Shelter, 0.3 miles. So I'm less than 10 minutes away. So I should be there 5 after 4, 10 after 4 at the latest. So I'm very happy. Let's go. So I'm filling up my water. That's the water source. I'm filtering right now. You can see. So I thought I'd just comment. I got to the shelter and there were already like 10 people there. Just after 4 o'clock. And that group of 8 people I passed on the trail, somebody else said that's an REI group that's coming to the shelter. So we're gonna have like 20 plus people because more people could be coming. Luckily there's lots of tent sites. I got a pretty good tent site, I think. But I don't know where that REI group is going, if they've reserved the shelter. I hope so, because there's not enough tent sites for 8 more people that I could see. Otherwise we're gonna be pretty close together. So, but man,